Okay, chapter 3 was so short, I just put it with chapter 4. But this is chapter 5. They're very short, aren't they? This chapter is called Ginger. And there's a picture of Ginger and Blackie talking. Horses do not actually stand together and talk like we do, but it's fun to imagine that they would talk like this if they could. Chapter 5, Ginger. One day when Ginger and I were standing alone in the shade, we had a chance to talk. She asked me all about my life and my break-in, and I told her all there was to tell. Well, she said, if I had your experiences, I might have a good temper too. But now I think it's too late for me. When I asked her why, Ginger told me all about her life. She had been taken from her mother when she was very young and put in with a lot of other young colts. There was no one to care for her, and there was no kind master to look out for her and show her affection. In the field where she used to run, there was a young boy who would throw stones at the colts. Ginger was never hurt, but one of the other colts was hit in the face and scarred for life. When it came time for her breaking in, she was captured by several rough men who forced the halter and bar into her mouth. When she tried to protest, they whipped her until her flanks ached. Flanks. You'll have to look that up. I think flanks are on the back legs, kind of under the tail. I think that's the flanks, the highest part of the leg. After that, Ginger was kept in a small, dark stall. Her master's son was a cruel drunkard. That means he drank a lot of alcohol. A cruel drunkard who wanted to break her high spirits. If she did not do exactly as he pleased, he would make her run around the training field until she was so tired she could hardly stand. One day, he worked her so hard that she lay down and felt tired, miserable, and angry. The very next morning, he came for her early and ran her around the track for a long time. He gave her no rest, and when she began to show her weariness, he whipped her with his crop. That's a stick that a kind master would use to tell the horse kind of where to go or encourage it to go faster, but it could be used cruelly, and apparently he just whipped her, just hit her and hit her. So he ran her around the track for a long time. He gave her no rest, and when she began to show her weariness, he whipped her with his crop. This was too much for poor Ginger, and she began to kick and rear up as she had never done before. At last, after a terrible struggle, she was able to throw the cruel man to the ground. Then, without looking behind her, she galloped away into the fields. Ginger stayed there for what seemed like a very long time. She became very hungry and thirsty, and the flies swarmed around her in the hot sun. Finally, as the sun was going down, an old man, who was very kind, came out to the field and gave her oats and fresh water to drink. He spoke gently to her in a kind and thoughtful way, and she allowed him to lead her back to the stable. After he brought her to the stable, he washed her wounds with warm water and stood by her and stroked her while she rested. He came to see her often, and she was given to another trainer named Job. He was gentle and thoughtful, and Ginger soon learned what was expected of her. There's a picture of her new trainer named Job. I have a feeling this is not the end of the troubles for Ginger. Chapter 6. Ginger's story continued. The second time Ginger and I were alone together, she told me about her next home. After she had been broken in, she was bought by a stylish gentleman and sent to the city. Her new master wanted more than anything else to be fashionable. So he pulled her reins very tight. He did this so that Ginger would keep her head held high for hours at a time. He did not want her to move at all. That's a terrible thing. She also had to wear 2 bits, which were so sharp that they hurt her tongue and made it bleed. Sometimes she was made to stand outside a place and wait for her master. If she moved or put her head down, she was whipped. It was enough to drive her mad. That means crazy. When she was miserable and angry, she only received a harsh word or blow. Ginger was willing to work and make her owners proud, but they cared nothing about her and only made her suffer. The pain in her mouth and her neck became so unbearable that when anyone came to harness her, she would snap and kick. Finally, Ginger could stand it no more, and she broke out of her harness and ran away. After this, she was sold to a few different owners. People were afraid of her bad temper, so she did not stay in any home for a very long time. Her last master was very rough and poked Ginger with a pitchfork if she did not obey. One day, when he tried to beat her with a riding whip, she bit him on the arm. From that time on, he was afraid to come too close to her. So Ginger learned one way for a horse to deal with human cruelty. But Ginger then told me that since she had been living here at Birtwick, her life had changed in many ways. John and James, the stable grooms, have learned to treat her with a special kindness. I noticed that as the weeks wore on, she grew more gentle and cheerful and was beginning to lose the angry look she had when I first met her. So here's a picture of John and James, the new stable boys or grooms that are taking care of Ginger. And tomorrow we will learn more about Merrylegs, the very handsome